So, what happens when a big player in an industry decides, it's time to get even bigger? Well, right now in Pakistan's cement sector, we're watching a move that could create a brand new industrial giant and totally reshape the market. We're going to break down how this one single deal could change, well, pretty much everything. Okay, so this is where it all started. Take a look at this letter. It might just look like some corporate paperwork, but trust me, this is the spark that lit the whole fire. This is a formal notice from Maple Leaf Cement sent straight to the Pakistan Stock Exchange, basically announcing their plan to buy out a major competitor. The second this hit the wire, believe me, the industry started buzzing about one thing and one thing only: a massive potential merger.
All right, so how are we going to unpack all this? Simple. We're going to walk through it step by step. We'll start with the big announcement itself. Then we'll get to know the companies involved. After that, we'll dig into why this is happening, what it means for the whole market, and finally, what we can expect to see next.
All right, first up, let's get right to the heart of the matter, the announcement that got everyone talking. So let's be super clear about this. This isn't just some market rumor or gossip. The board of directors over at Maple Leaf Cement has officially announced they are seriously considering buying a controlling stake in Pioneer Cement. I mean, this is a huge strategic move, and it's coming right from the top. Okay, to really get what's going on with this deal, you gotta know who we're talking about. So let's introduce the two key players at the center of this whole thing. So on one hand, you've got Maple Leaf Cement. They're already a really established player up in the north. And here's a key detail. They already own about 18.5% of Pioneer, so they're not exactly strangers. Then on the other side, you have the company they're targeting, Pioneer Cement. They're a solid mid-tier company, but they've got a really significant 5.2 million ton capacity and a pretty modern, efficient production line. You can see why they'd be an attractive target. And that leads us to the million-dollar question, right? Why this? Why now? Why is Maple Leaf so interested in Pioneer? Let's dive into the strategy and the numbers behind this whole play.
So, yeah, what's really driving this whole thing? What's the end game?
Well, it really boils down to one simple word: scale. If this deal actually happens, Maple Leaf's market share in the super important North region would just explode. It would jump from 12% all the way up to 19%. I mean, that is a massive, game-changing leap in market power. And see, this isn't just about adding more factories or tons of cement. No, this is a strategic power play. The real goal here is to launch Maple Leaf into the number 2 spot, the second largest cement player in the entire North. That would completely rewrite the competitive landscape.
But it's not just about getting bigger for the sake of it. It's about getting bigger, smarter. And that's what analysts are pointing out. They're looking at Pioneer Cement and saying, hey, this looks like a really good deal. As you can see in this quote, they're calling it a reasonably priced asset and that it already looks cheap on key financial multiples. It's like that perfect storm, a great strategic fit at a great price.
And here, let's actually look at the data for a second. These charts basically compare a bunch of different cement companies. Now, if you find Pioneer, that's PIOC on the chart, you'll see it's valued lower than a lot of its rivals on metrics like EV/ton. Now, EV/ton is just a fancy way of saying the company's total value divided by how much cement it can make. So when analysts say it looks cheap, this is what they're talking about. It's a chance for Maple Leaf to snap up some really valuable assets at what could be a bargain price. Okay, so let's zoom out a bit. If this deal actually goes through, what does that mean for the entire industry? Let's talk about the ripple effects this could have across the whole market. This table really lays it all out, and to change is just wow. Look at this. Maple Leaf's capacity would jump from 8 million tons to over 13 million. Their market share in the North goes from 12% to 19%. And their rank? They go from being just another mid-tier player to being the second largest force in the region. We're talking about a total transformation of their scale, their influence, and their power. And the benefits don't stop at just market share. This is where you hear the business word synergies, which really just means making the new combined company work better and more efficiently. Having a larger scale gives them a huge competitive advantage. They can combine their distribution networks for a wider reach, and there's massive potential for saving money. For instance, their plants are only about 120 kilometers apart. Think about the savings on transport costs alone, like for things like imported coal. That's a big deal. So the potential here is obviously huge, but, and this is a big but, it's not a done deal, not by a long shot. So what actually needs to happen to make this a reality? Well, like that initial letter laid out, it's a whole process. First, Maple Leaf has to do what's called due diligence. That's basically a super deep dive into Pioneer's books, their operations, everything, to make sure there are no surprises. Next up, the negotiations, hammering out the final price and terms. If they can agree, they'll sign the official binding contracts. And even then, it's not over. They still have to make a public offer and, crucially, get the all clear from the regulators. So the key thing to remember right now is that even though the intention is crystal clear, we are still very much in the early days. The fate of this entire deal really hangs on two things: successful negotiations and, just as important, getting that green light from the regulators.
And all of this leaves us with one massive question for the whole industry, right? If Maple Leaf actually pulls this off and creates this new cement giant, will it force other big players to make their own moves? Could this be the first domino to fall, setting off a brand new wave of consolidation all across Pakistan's cement industry? That's the big question just hanging in the air.